I feel like I've always been more in touch with my anger and rage. Women were supposed to be like soft and in touch with like our quote feminine side. And I've always been wanting to punch walls and not crying.
Shh. Welcome to the Secret Life Podcast. Tell me your secret. I'll tell you mine. When I first started my recovery 11 years ago, I struggled through the textbook-like material on this subject. I wanted to make the addiction and the recovery from it accessible and relatable to more people by telling it in an entertaining way. Well, I'm super excited to announce I've released my first book, Secret Life of a Hollywood Sex and Love Addict. If I can help just one person find a solution or at least realize they're not broken or alone, then writing this has been worth it. You can pick up the book exclusively at Amazon or signed copy at secretlifenovel.com. And the best way to support our podcast is to subscribe and share. If you haven't left a review or rating on Apple Podcasts yet, please do. It'll help more people find our show. And if you want to be a guest, shoot me a note at secretlifepodcast@icloud.com. Enjoy the episode. Welcome to Secret Life Podcast. I'm Breanne Davis-Gant. Today I'm pulling back the curtains of all kinds of human secrets. We'll hear about what people are hiding from themselves or others. You know, those deep, dark secrets you probably want to take to your grave, or those lighter, funnier secrets that are just plain embarrassing. Really, the how, what, when, where, and why of it all. Oh, today my guest is Tawny. Now, Tawny, I have a question for you. Dun, dun, dun. What is your secret?
Well, my secret is that I am a woman with extreme rage issues.
Oh, no, don't rage on me. I'm just
Never on you, but mostly myself. But okay. Yeah, it's a thing.
It is a thing. And when you mentioned that to me, I was like, holy crud, I have some major rage issues. So let's go back to the beginning. When did you realize you had a problem with rage? Like, when was that aha moment?
I feel like I've always been more in touch with my anger and rage. Women were supposed to be like soft and in touch with like our quote feminine side and be more in touch with crying, where men are the ones that want to punch a wall. And I've always been wanting to punch walls and not crying.
Oh my God, you sound like me when you were just saying that, you guys. I was rolling my eyes. I was like, what society thinks women should act like. But I too would have a male, more masculine reaction, right? Where it's like, argh. So when was that moment that you were, was it a year ago? Was it longer? Do you remember as a child?
No, I just feel like I've just always been more in touch with that. And right. I don't really know where it comes from.
Okay.
But I feel way more in touch with like the quote masculine, my quote masculine side of, I just want to break shit.
Did you come, you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but did you come from a dysfunctional family or trauma in your background?
Oh, of course I did.
Oh my God, that's so sad that it's like ding, ding, we all have.
Well, it's almost like weird when I meet someone who has comes from a really genuinely happy home, I'm like, what is the secret? What is going on? But like, they're actually like mother and father that really love each other and love the kids. And it freaks me out. But
it does freak me out too. I'm like, what's wrong with you? Like, yeah. It's like a unicorn. Like it's something you've never seen before.
Exactly. But no, I was raised by a single mom. Okay. And my dad was and is a heavy metal musician. So he was around kind of when he wanted to be around. And so, daddy issues, mommy issues, only child issues, you name it. I got it. And one day at a time, trying to get through it all.
I love that. It's such like a recovery on the other side of it. You're like, one day at a time, I'm just trying to make it through this world, like in one piece.
Yep.
But what were I know, but what were like the daddy, was it like going after the unavailable man? What were those mommy and daddy issues? If you could just, define some of them.
Yeah, well, one thing, so I'm bisexual, and there's this, really corny joke that bisexuals have where it's like you sleep with the gender of the parent that you're the most upset with at the time.
I've never heard that. Oh my God, that's so amazing.
Yeah. So yeah, you name it. It definitely showed up a lot. Like the daddy issues showed up with like, I still love like dudes with long hair and tattoos. If you're in a band, that's even better. I mean, it's textbook stuff here,
Oh my God, I love it. I love the textbook that you're like, and if you look like my dad and dress like my dad and act like my dad, ding, ding, I'm interested.
Yep. If you have tattoos and you're in a band and you ignore me, I will be yours forever.
What was your mom like? What was her characteristics?
So actually now my whole family, we're all in recovery, and it's actually quite beautiful where I'm 5.5 years sober. Dad is like 15 years sober, and mom is in recovery from an eating disorder. So we're, a very like, they're no longer together. I actually never knew them together, but we're all able to come together and have like, a functional family dinner.
Yeah.
If you will. So it's just, I grew up with a single mom who was, self-medicating with food and binge eating and then restricting. And, it's just like, all addiction is essentially the same. Mm-hmm. And so my mom actually had rage and anger issues. So I think we become what we see. So I saw her handling things by getting angry. So then that's what I learned.
It's so fascinating that you just said that. My mom was so similar. She wasn't a single mom, but as I've talked about that, my parents were so not together when they were together, like they hated each other. And I remember watching my mom restrict and binge and have anger issues too. And she was a workaholic on top of it. And as a young girl, you see that and not knowing how to manage your feelings. Do you think that's where the rage is? Like you didn't get the tools to manage your feelings at such a young age?
Yeah, absolutely. And, there's this part of me it's part of my recovery journey where I'm actually able to see my parents, when they had me for who they were. Like I look at it and I'm like, mom was 21, dad was 24. His record just made it big and he was touring. He spent his whole life working on this. So of course he picked the band over me. Of course he did. Like I actually understand that. And then same thing with my mom. I'm like, mom grew up in a very dysfunctional household. She didn't get the tools to learn how to process emotions. So I didn't get those tools either. So it's like, I can look at it, pragmatically and make sense of it and actually have empathy for my parents. It doesn't excuse their behaviors, but it's definitely helped with the forgiveness path, I would say.
I agree. I mean, I look at my parents now, especially being a parent, and go, holy shit, this is the hardest job in the world. And if you do not have a recovery and you become a parent, I can't imagine. I get triggered all the time and I have years of recovery. And that I can talk it out or take a break, but yeah, you look back and you go, how am I even alive? Like, how did I even survive? How bad it was, but that's the thing, you have to do that inner child work. And it seems like you have been, and looking back at the why we say, so when did this rage, like when you noticed that this was a problem you haven't worked on yet, was there a moment that happened?
I don't know if there was an actual moment. I know that I definitely started to self-medicate and disassociate from reality around 14.
Okay.
So I had, a traumatic experience, and I'll leave it at that. And, it was one of those before and after moments where it's like my life before and then after.
Yeah.
And so it was a bookmark. Exactly. So I know that's when I picked up a lot of these not so good habits.
Okay.
And I think the rage started to come into that because when you go through something traumatic and then you self-medicate with drugs and alcohol and sex, instead of dealing with it, you're not getting these tools to really process it, especially going through puberty, like, and with an
Adolescence,
an emotionally absent mom, a physically absent dad. Like, it was just a really hard time. So I had a lot of rage. So I remember the first time I really felt seen in my rage was when Jagged Little Pill came out. And I just saw this woman who was so in touch with her feelings, which I now know is rage, but she was just screaming and just feeling it. She was really letting herself feel it and express it artistically. And I was like, oh, I'm allowed to act that way. It's like, I thought only boys could do that, but she's doing this, that
was probably such a moment. And then did you have moments in your life where that rage came out and you didn't know how to control it?
Yeah. And it usually was when I was drinking.
Oh, okay.
Like, alcohol allowed me to be, this, I guess, version of myself that I didn't really let myself be.
Okay.
So that's when I would really feel. That's when only time I would cry would be when I was drinking. And then I would just react really strongly in relationships, pick fights, show up at boyfriends' houses and like bang on the door, just like complete insanity. Like, I was poster child for unwell. Like, it was so bad.
Oh my God. I've heard that so many times, but I love that. When you mentioned this to me, this moment popped in my head that when I was 17 years old, my parents told me they were getting a divorce. Finally, right? We were happy, like, end it. This has been miserable. But I went out to the Taco Bell and somebody blew smoke in my face and I punched a girl in the face. Like, did anything like that happen? I was like, I thought I was okay with the divorce, but here I'm like punching a girl in the face. Did that, like, have you had those moments?
I've not punched a human, but I have broken many things. I've punched walls, banged against doors. Like, it was very, very unhealthy. Like, not that it's a bad thing to feel your anger. It's anger is a feeling that you should let yourself feel. It's how I was dealing with it was unhealthy. And it's, actually, like, to like, not to super fast forward, but
yeah,
that was really like the impetus of what made me get on medication, because I knew I needed help.
Okay. So you got sober, right? Was the rage still there? Obviously, right? After you got sober?
The rage was still there. And it's like, people think when you get sober, everything gets better. And it's actually kind of the opposite at first, because it's like, I was self-medicating for 14, 15 years.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I'm 29 and I have no coping skills. I don't know how to function in this world. So it's really scary, actually.
So scary. It's the scariest moment, because once you get through that withdrawal of whatever chemical or, brain disorder like sex and love addiction is, you then have to like go through the process of understanding and feeling all that stuff you've been shoving down. So how was that process for you?
Very, very uncomfortable. And it's still a process. Like I said, it's been 5.5 years now. So, they say in the, like, the recovery therapy world, like, arrested development is when you're mentally stuck at an age that you started to self-medicate. So yes, I was 29, but mentally and emotionally, I was 14, 15 years old. So there's a big disconnect there, and it's not matching. So I really had to learn these tools of essentially how to be an adult, how to be a human, how to process my emotions, how to let myself cry, how healthy ways to express anger. And it's, like I said earlier, it truly is one day at a time.
It is one day at a time. And everything you're saying, I have gone through. It doesn't matter which addiction you have. Whenever you use anything not to feel your feelings, because as an addict, I don't want to feel my feelings. All I want to feel is euphoria 24/7. I'm not interested in any other emotion. But then when you take it away, you have to. But those moments where you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to feel those feelings. Did you, as an addict, I have this question for you. Did you feel when you were getting sober and feeling those feelings, did you feel like they were going to be forever?
Oh, yeah.
right?
And it was so scary because it's like, I felt, we self-medicate because we want to have some sort of control over these awful feelings. And then when life happens and you are out of control and the only thing you can do is control your reaction. Ooh. That's brutal.
It is brutal. But do you have a moment where your rage overtook you and you floated out of your body and were like, what the fuck am I doing? Did you ever have a moment like that? Can you tell us that moment?
Yeah, I would say it almost got worse in sobriety because I was actually feeling it.
Mm-hmm.
And I would get, I would just, to be super current, like picking fights with my partner and like throwing things, hitting walls. And then I would like, it's almost like this other person would consume me and I am watching it happen. And I'm like red. I am beet red. My heart is racing. I'm hot. And I have zero control over my body. Like something truly takes over me. And then it subsides. And then I realize it's almost like a hangover, like an instant hangover of like, I'm so embarrassed. I'm crying. I'm just mortified at my behavior. And that's almost like, it was almost like a rock bottom moment of last year. I was like, I can't keep putting my relationship through this. Like I finally decided to get on medication because I'm not happy living this way. My partner was like, of course, like I wouldn't want to live with me if I was treating someone like that. And I mean, it's like, and it would be so infrequent too, where it's like months and months and months of like, everything's fine. And then something would set me off and I would lose it.
Yeah.
And it's really scary.
It is scary because you don't have control over it. And it is almost like an emotional hangover over. And then you realize you're abusing this person that didn't deserve it, but you don't know why you're doing it or you can't stop it.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So you went on medication. Can you tell us what medication you went on? Are you comfortable saying or no?
Yeah, definitely. I'm all about destigmatizing medication. If it works for you, amazing. It worked for me. I got on Lexapro, or it's technically an antidepressant, but it was helping me. It helps me with my anxiety.
Yeah.
And it's been truly life-changing. And I know a lot of people have a hard time finding the right medication, finding the right dosage. And so I'm very grateful that this first time worked. It's, 20 milligrams a day every morning. And I started to feel better, probably within like 6 weeks.
Yeah.
I haven't had like a rage attack, I guess we could call it, since I started taking medication. I will say that's also around the time that I found these break rooms where you can pay to go into rooms and literally just break a bunch of shit.
Oh my God, that sounds amazing. Just as a mom, like I just want to go break something sometimes. But because being a parent is so hard, but then being a parent and an addict in recovery on top of it. So these rooms, you just go and break a bunch of shit. How much do you pay? How long is it? Give me the details.
I mean, this is not sponsored content.
Not sponsored.
In New York, I think it's called Break Room.
Okay.
But they're everywhere. They're all over now. You rent the room and there's a couple different packages. I think we got a couples package, where I think it's actually called couples therapy. And it was like, I think like $80 and you have the room for 30 minutes and it comes with like, there's sledgehammers, there's crowbars, there's hammers, there's baseball bats, and then buckets of dishes, printers, TVs, old school telephones, fax machines, like, and my favorite part is that you bring your phone and you plug it in and you make a playlist. So I'm listening to, like Break Stuff by Limp Bizkit, 9 Inch Nails, like blaring it. And we're just like beating the shit out of a fax machine. And it was almost like this bonding moment where we were both like I have a sledgehammer, he has a baseball bat, and we are just beating it and like toner is flying everywhere and it's just so dramatic.
Oh
but
my God. I think I should do that. We should do a couples, because a part of me then is like, I'm having a tiny bit of anxiety because I feel like it's so revealing to show that rage, not towards anybody, but just to release it. That's vulnerable. And to do that in front of your partner, did you feel that vulnerability? Because I'm feeling uncomfortable right now.
I think I would have felt that if he hadn't already seen me at my worst. He saw me at my, at my really ugly stage of not managing my rage. So this was actually, I think, a positive thing for us to experience together, where we were both able to let out some anger in a healthy, productive way. Mm-hmm. And girl, I will say, when we left, I mean, it's on 34th Street. So it's like very loud part of Manhattan. I mean, nothing bothered us. Everything was just like rolling off our shoulders. It felt like, like after like you go to a really good yoga class, like nothing can bother you.
Or a massage or something. You come out and you're like,
yes, like I felt like that times 10, like so zen that like I had nothing left in me, and it was so good. And I've been back many times since, and I can't recommend it enough.
No, I actually think we're going to do it. I think the next time you talk, you will put me on the hot seat and say, did you guys do it? Because I'm getting uncomfortable saying I'm going to do it. And I know when that uncomfortability arises, then it's something I have to try, because I did have this one session when I went to a 12-step meeting, not in sex and love addiction, in another program. And one of the exercises was you got up in the middle of a group and you took like a tennis racket and you hit a pillow while you were doing your share. And it was so great to do, but it was a bunch of strangers. This is like doing it in front of my husband of 16 years. Like, that makes me more uncomfortable.
Have you ever screamed into a pillow?
Yes, I have, but by myself.
So maybe
or my therapist. I love that you're giving me a therapy session. Do it.
Well, you could try that maybe, like before you go break a bunch of stuff with your husband, you can like scream into a pillow together and see how that feels.
Oh my God, that makes me uncomfortable too. I have an intimacy problem, obviously.
No, it is a big deal. It is vulnerable, especially because, like the beginning of our conversation, where it's like, as women, we're taught that we need to wear skirts and we need to be dainty with our nails painted and not get dirty. Mm-hmm. And I'm telling you to go listen to loud music and break stuff in front of the love of your life. So that's totally opposite of what we were taught. But like, also the feminist in us is like, hell yeah, let's go do that.
No, like thinking of doing it myself by myself, I'm like, fuck yeah, let's break some shit, or with a bunch of girls. But to do it in front of my man, but he's seen me at my worst and he's seen me rage. So I don't know what that is, but you have really brought some things out into the light for me today, which is what I love about two people in recovery help each other. But yeah, so you're now doing that. You're communicating with your husband. Are you still doing therapy on top of it?
Yeah, I do. I do therapy, and I still see a therapist every week. Yeah. And it's been the same therapist since the beginning of my sobriety. So she's been through everything with me, and, therapy, support groups, journaling, just talking about it is so helpful, because when it was something I dealt with in private or just with my partner, there is that shame attached to it. So like, if the reason I wanted to talk about this today was, hopefully if anyone is listening and you are struggling with rage, especially if you were a woman, like, you are totally not alone. It is like, we all have emotions. Like, I wish women were allowed to be angry. I wish men were allowed to cry. I think the world would be a lot better if we were allowed to feel the spectrum of emotions.
Yeah. And that's the thing that I do love in recovery, is that people are allowed to cry. The man, I love seeing men. It shows me their humanity, and I have empathy. But as a woman still, I feel like when you're angry, you're called that bitch, all the wrong words when you're angry and you show your feelings. I still feel like we're not given that outlet.
No. And it's like, it's important that, like, you're holding space for this conversation, because it's like you and I live in a progressive world, like LA and New York and the creative arts scene. So we're around a lot of progressive thinking, but you know, there's also people like I'm from the South, I'm from Texas, and
I'm from Atlanta, girl. Like I'm from Atlanta.
So, like, we have girlfriends from back home that would never do some of the things that you and I are talking about. So it's like, I think it's important to keep, you know, those people in mind when we have these conversations too.
No, and I love it. And you already really answered my last question for you. If someone out there is struggling, even if it's a man, but especially if it's a woman, what would be the steps you would take that you took or you wish you would have taken at the beginning?
I mean, I think just, well, to sound really corny, admitting that there's a problem, of course, is step one, whether you work the steps or not, but you do need to admit there's a problem before you can work on it. Like that's just kind of a deal breaker. But then if you can find even one person that you trust, if you feel comfortable going to a support group or even online support groups, you know,
there's so many now.
There's so many. You can leave your camera off and be completely anonymous. You could check out, like, there's anger management support groups, also all kinds of recovery support groups that, and if you were able to see a therapist, I can't recommend therapy enough. I wish therapy was easily accessible to everybody, because I think everyone should be in therapy.
Oh, it's the best thing ever. It's like a massage for your soul. That's how I see it. When you're going in and saying like, I am worthy of this time. I am worthy of this hour where someone is sitting there and listening to me. And it's not like a friend or your partner, whoever. I recommend therapy 100%.
Yeah. It just, you know, and kind of like you were saying, like letting yourself know that you deserve to get better, because you deserve to get better. And there are healthy ways to process all of these emotions. Like for me, it was medication and finding a healthy way to destroy things instead of my home. So whatever that means for you that's going to work for you.
Oh my God. I just got my therapist said I wasn't allowed to do road rage anymore, because when I was like in year 5 of my program, she was like, what's going on with you? I was like, nothing, I'm great, but I've been getting in a lot of fights while I'm driving in Los Angeles. And I remember her being, that's abusive. You cannot do road rage. You can't honk your horn and scream at someone because they cut you off or going too slow or whatever. Like that is not, you're being abusive to people around you. And I think looking at it like that, because when I would have rage, I would just be like, oh, I'm just expressing myself. I'm like getting it out. And what you're actually doing is abusing other people when you're not taking care of it yourself in a healthy way.
No, you're exactly right. And that's why I'm so glad that you brought that up, because there are healthy and unhealthy ways where it kind of like an overshare, you know, there's a difference between confiding in someone that you love and trust versus oversharing to someone you barely know, or someone who is not really qualified to like listen to what you're talking about. So that is a really good point. And it's just like one day at a time. You're not a freak. You're not weird. It's just, life is really hard. Like
it is hard.
It's really hard, especially in recovery. But
it's harder without recovery.
It's harder without recovery. Good point.
Yeah,
Thank you.
It is. You're just blinded to it, but it's harder. You're damaging yourself more. You're damaging others more. But I'm so grateful you wanted to come on and have this conversation. I think it is so important. It's brought up a lot of uncomfortable feelings for me, but that I obviously have to look at. But if anybody wants to find you and see what you're up to, you're writing right now, you have a book coming out, please tell the people where they can find you. And if they have questions about their rage, can they reach out to you?
Yeah, definitely. I typically write and podcast and do public speaking on the subject of like sober sex and dating. So most of my content is about that. If you want to follow me, it's Tawny Lara. And my website is just tawnylara.com. And that'll be in the show notes. So yeah, you can check it out. If you have any questions and you want some advice on how to find a break room, I can be your girl. I'll tell you where to find one.
Thank you so much. And if you want to be on the show, please email me at secretlifepodcast@icloud.com. Until next time. Thanks again for listening to the show. Please subscribe, rate, share, or send me a note at secretlifepodcast.com. And if you like to check out my book, head over to secretlifenovel.com or Amazon to pick up a copy for yourself or someone you love. Thanks again. See you soon.